You ever drive past an empty lot or a new development and think, man, I remember what used to be here? We're talking tourist spots that once pulled in crowds, filled postcards, and stirred hearts. Places people saved up for, loaded the station wagon, and hit the road to see, and now? Gone. Vanished. Lost to time, nature, or progress. Let's rewind the clock and look at 20 beloved tourist attractions that don't exist anymore. Some of these might just take you back to your childhood. Freedomland USA The Bronx, New York. This one's for the folks who grew up hearing their parents say, back in my day, Freedomland USA in the Bronx. It was basically Disneyland's East Coast cousin, but with a heavy dose of American history. Picture this, a massive theme park shaped like the United States, with different regions representing iconic moments. Wild West shootouts, the Chicago fire, even a replica of San Francisco. It only lasted from 1960 to 1964, but man, people still talk about it like it was yesterday. These days, it's been replaced by Co-op City apartments. So yeah, where there used to be horse-drawn wagons in frontier towns, you now have people waiting on the elevator. Next, we're heading to the Windy City, but with a bang. Literally. Lincoln Park Gun Club, Chicago, Illinois. This was the kind of spot your grandpa would brag about. The Lincoln Park Gun Club wasn't just for folks who liked shooting clay pigeons. It had vibes. Right there on Chicago's lakefront, you'd have folks puffing cigars, blasting targets with Lake Michigan shimmering behind them. Real outdoorsy, old-school energy. But the 90s weren't kind to it. Environmental concerns and changing times meant the city eventually pulled the plug in 1991. Now it's all picnic tables and joggers. Still nice, just a bit quieter. And less smoky. Disneyland Skyway, Anaheim, California. Now this was peak Disneyland magic. You'd hop into a little gondola, just you and your cotton candy, and drift high above the park, from Tomorrowland to Fantasyland. And yes, you literally floated through the Matterhorn. Unreal. It opened in 1956 and closed in 94. Why? Well, times changed, safety standards changed, and some folks may have tried to jump out. Yeah, that happened. Today, all that's left are memories and a few rusty remnants hidden in the park. But if you were lucky enough to ride it, you know how cool it felt to fly above the crowds like a VIP. Rockaway Beach Boardwalk, Queens, New York. If you spent any time in NYC during the summer, you know Rockaway Beach. The boardwalk wasn't just wood and nails, it was a slice of local life. People rollerblading in short shorts, vendors slinging Italian ices, old-timers playing dominoes. Straight out of a movie. Then came Hurricane Sandy in 2012, and boom, huge chunks of the boardwalk were gone overnight. They rebuilt it with fancy concrete and modern touches. But if you ask the old-school folks, it's not quite the same. The soul of it, the clatter of skate wheels on planks, the smell of fried shrimp, can't be rebuilt. Bethlehem Steel Plant Tours, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Okay, this one's got some grit to it. The Bethlehem Steel Plant was an absolute beast. It helped build the Empire State Building and the Golden Gate Bridge, no joke. For a while, they ran tours through the abandoned mill. You'd walk through these massive rusting machines, see where molten steel poured like lava, and just soak up the sheer scale of it all. Eventually, they turned the site into a fancy arts and culture hub, Steel Stacks. It's slick, but there was something humbling about walking those catwalks, hard hat on, imagining the sweat and grind of thousands of workers. Blue-collar history doesn't get more real than that. Pontiac Silverdome, Pontiac, Michigan. If you were around in the 70s or 80s, this place was legendary. Home of the Detroit Lions, monster truck rallies, WrestleMania 3. Yeah, that Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant one. And even Elvis Presley once rocked the house here. It was the kind of venue where your ears rang for days after an event, and you loved it. But like so many relics from that era, it faded out. The Lions left in 2002, and over time, nature started taking it back. Weeds on the field, roof collapsed, raccoons moving in like they owned the place. They tried to blow it up in 2017, and the building refused to go down at first. No joke, that thing at heart. Before we continue, kindly take a moment to hit the subscribe button. Less than 1% of our viewers are subscribed, and by joining the community, you'll encourage us to keep creating videos like this. Thanks for your support. The Ambassador Hotel, Los Angeles, California. Now this one's bittersweet. The Ambassador Hotel was pure old-school Hollywood glam. Opened in 1921, it hosted 6 Oscar ceremonies and had everyone from Sinatra to Marilyn Monroe lounging in its halls. And let's not forget the Coconut Grove nightclub, the spot for dancing and star watching. After years of decline, it was finally demolished in 2005. Today, it's the site of a high school. Important? Sure. But it's tough not to miss that golden age shine it once had. Cypress Gardens, Winter Haven, Florida. Long before theme parks started popping up on every corner in Florida, there was Cypress Gardens. Opened in 1936, this was the spot for botanical beauty, southern belles and hoop skirts, and water skiing shows that looked like synchronized magic. It was charming, wholesome, and just had that old Americana charm. But times changed. The crowds went to Disney, and Cypress couldn't keep up. It shut down in 2009. Pieces of it live on in Legoland, Florida, but the tranquil gardens and vintage vibes? Mostly gone. It's like trying to find grandma's recipes in a microwave dinner. Just not the same. Lake Las Vegas Ritz-Carlton, Henderson, Nevada. Lake Las Vegas was supposed to be the classy, calm cousin to the wild Vegas Strip. The Ritz-Carlton opened there in 2003, full of marble, fountains, and that classic 5-star feel. It was serene, fancy, and felt like a hidden oasis. The kind of place where you'd sip wine by the water and feel like a Bond villain in retirement. But the 2008 financial crisis hit hard. The hotel shut its doors in 2010, and although the area's bounced back with other hotels and homes, the original Ritz magic is history. You can still see the bones of what it once was. But man, if you were there during its short glory days, you felt that luxury. Playland at the Beach, San Francisco, California. This one goes way back. Playland at the Beach opened in the early 1900s and was the place to be for classic carnival fun. Think bumper cars, fun houses, and that slightly spooky Laughing Sal clown. Locals and tourists alike strolled along Ocean Beach, cotton candy in hand, soaking up the salty breeze. By the 70s, it had fallen into disrepair and was eventually demolished in 1972. Today, condos and a Safeway sit where the roller coasters once roared. But if you ever had a corn dog there while watching the sun dip into the Pacific, it probably still lives rent-free in your memory. Motorworld, Virginia Beach, Virginia. Before mega-theme parks became the norm, there was Motorworld. Go-karts, bumper boats, mini-golf. It was like a gearhead's version of summer heaven. Kids would zoom around like they were in NASCAR, parents had slushies, and everything just smelled like hot pavement and freedom. It started to shrink in the early 2000s before eventually shutting down. Some of the grounds are still used for racing events, but the full glory? Gone. It's one of those places that lived on in your childhood more than in photos. Crystal Cave, Sequoia National Park, California. Now, Sequoia still has some magic, but the original Crystal Cave experience? That was a real gem, literally. Hidden deep in the national park, this marble cave glistened with mineral crystals and stalactites that looked like something straight out of sci-fi. You could tour it with a flashlight and a jacket, listening to rangers whisper about ancient formations and underground rivers. But due to damage from wildfires and the intense impact of tourism, it's been closed to the public. The cave's still there, but exploring it now? That's just a story for the grandkids. Ice Palace, St. Paul, Minnesota. This one was like a frosty fairy tale come to life. Every few years, during the winter carnival, St. Paul would build this gigantic ice palace out of massive blocks of ice from nearby lakes. We're talking tens of thousands of blocks, some of them lit up like a scene from Frozen before Frozen was a thing. The first one went up in 1886 and wowed crowds for decades. But here's the thing, they were always temporary. Melting was inevitable. The last big one was built in 2004, and it hasn't made a comeback since. With rising costs and warmer winters, these castles of cold are now part of frosty folklore. The Migsfield Airport, Chicago, Illinois. All right, hear me out. This wasn't your typical tourist spot, but if you ever flew into Chicago and saw that tiny strip of land right on Lake Michigan, that was Migsfield. Opened in 1948, this small airport gave you stunning views of the city skyline and was actually one of the most scenic urban landings in the US. And if you were into flight simulators back in the day, Microsoft Flight Sim, anyone, you probably took off from Migsfield more times than you can count. But in 2003, in the dead of night, bulldozers showed up and ripped it apart. No warning. Just gone. It's now a nature preserve, which is great and all, but for aviation fans, that was a gut punch. Pontchartrain Beach, New Orleans, Louisiana. Before Bourbon Street became the party central we all know today, New Orleans had Pontchartrain Beach. This lakeside amusement park was opened in 1928 and had everything. A wooden roller coaster called the Zephyr, a giant Ferris wheel, live music, and beach vibes that felt like summer never ended. It was where locals had first dates, family picnics, and carnival-style fun that didn't break the bank. But by the 80s, things slowed down. The beach fell out of favor, and in 1983, the gates shut for good. These days, it's just a memory, unless you've got an old photo stashed away somewhere in your attic. Timetown, Bolton Landing, New York. This one's obscure unless you grew up around Lake George, but Timetown was something else. Opened in 1970, it was a weird, wonderful mix of science fiction, American history, and cheesy animatronics. It had a space-themed train ride, a Hall of Presidents, and even, get this, robot bears that played in a band. It lasted barely a decade, closing in 1981. But for kids who visited, it was a surreal blast. Picture Epcot's weird cousin who got kicked out for being too eccentric. Today, nature's completely taken it back. Trees have swallowed the trails, and the robots are long gone. The Stardust Resort and Casino, Las Vegas, Nevada. Before the ultra-luxury towers and EDM pool parties, there was Stardust. Opened in 1958, it was old-school Vegas, mob ties, Rat Pack vibes, and neon for days. That sign alone was iconic. The hotel itself was huge for the time, and the casino floor? Just the right amount of glitz and grit. But Vegas reinvented itself, and in 2006, the Stardust was imploded. Boom, just like that. The site was supposed to become the echelon, but after the 2008 crash, that plan fizzled. So now, it's Resorts World, all shiny and modern. Cool, yeah, but if you ever stepped foot inside the Stardust, you know which version of Vegas had real soul. The Rooney Plaza Hotel, Miami Beach, Florida. Built in the 1920s, this was Miami Beach's crown jewel. The Rooney Plaza had Moorish arches, grand ballrooms, and hosted everyone from Al Capone to President Truman. You weren't doing Miami right if you didn't at least step into that lobby. But by the 1960s, the glamour faded. The building aged, tastes changed, and by 1968, the Rooney was demolished. They replaced it with condos. Decent place to live, sure, but gone is the jazz, the tuxedos, the smell of ocean breeze and cigars on the veranda. Dogpatch USA, Marble Falls, Arkansas. This one was a hillbilly-themed amusement park based on the Lil Abner comic strip. Opened in 1968, it was quirky, kitschy, and weirdly charming. You had hillbilly stunt shows, trout fishing ponds, and characters in overalls yelling yeehaw on the daily. It never quite reached Disneyland status. Shocking, I know, and by the 90s, it shut down. It's been passed around to various owners since, with dreams of revival that never quite stuck. The buildings still stand, rotting away under the Arkansas sun. It's like stepping into a cartoon graveyard. Skyride, Chicago World's Fair, 1933. The 1933 World's Fair was all about the future, and the Sky Ride was its crown jewel, a 600-foot-tall ride that carried people across the fairgrounds in cable cars. For the time, it was like dangling from the clouds. Folks lined up just to see Chicago from that height. It was a mix of thrill and wonder that made people dream bigger. But just like the fair itself, it was never meant to last. It was dismantled in 1935. If you didn't catch it then, you never would. But oh man, if you did, that memory stayed with you for life. And there you have it, 20 famous tourist attractions that once lit up the map and now only live on in memories and yellowing photos. Some were grand, others quirky, but all of them were special. If you ever visited any of these tourist sites, let me know the one you missed the most. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, give this a like, and let us know in the comments what topic you want us to explore next.